Well, folks, it's finally happened. A lost podcast. I know you've all been waiting for this day, sadly waiting for this day, but it's finally happened. We lose in overtime by 4 points, 76 Auburn, 80 Arkansas. We still haven't lost in regulation yet, though, so don't get too upset. We knew it would be tough. This Arkansas team is red hot. I don't think they've lost in 10 games or something like that. They lost their first three SEC games, have won every game since. So I guess that's 8 straight games now. Yeah, we knew this was the most likely one to lose. It hurts, though, every time happening. Overtime again. I put my overtime socks on. They were undefeated for a while, and they're not undefeated anymore. I'm going to pour one out for our first lost podcast, a little rum swizzle from Gosling's Rum in Bermuda. Matt, what you think?
There have been quite a few games the last few weeks where you could definitely make the argument that Auburn put itself in position to lose potentially. Not so much that they didn't deserve to win. It's just when you're a good team and you let other teams hang around or build double-digit leads, which Auburn had come back from so many of those this year and won, and they almost did. We'll get into it tonight. I just think I thought Arkansas was by far, I know we disagree on this from our text exchange. I just thought Arkansas was the better team. Most of the night, they wanted it more. I thought they controlled the style, and they kind of played a little of our style against us when we're a little vulnerable with a couple guys out. And ultimately, I just think this team has looked a little tired, whether that's, I don't want to rant too long. I just think there were a lot of factors and reasons this was basically a pick'em game in the Vegas gambling world, not necessarily a huge upset with how Arkansas has been playing. Ultimately, Auburn just kept putting itself in these positions where this was possible, and they finally didn't make the play at the end of regulation like they have quite a few other times.
I think the best way, we usually pick our MVPs. The players get very excited to find out who the MVPs are. Well, I hope they don't listen to the podcast this time because we're going to have to say, down things on the team or whatever. Probably not. I don't know. I'm okay with this team. But I figured the first three things, we don't have to talk about this. I think the best thing we can do is pick a stat each that cost us the game. I mean, everything is always cumulative. Just like when you win, everything's cumulative. But if we're going to pick the most important, but I want to go ahead and say off the top, we can't pick. It was an away game in the SEC at a hot Bud Walton Arena because that's obvious. We know that's going to be tough. A red hot Arkansas team. We can't pick that one. We know that's what's tough. We know that's what was coming into it. And lastly, I should have said this in the intro, with our starting point guard, Zep Jasper out. We don't want to use this Kentucky excuse or whatever that, our player was hurt, so you don't deserve the win or blah, 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 blah. No, this is just how the season goes. People are going to get hurt. Depth is part of the game. It sucks that Zep was out, and I think it would be a different game if Zep was in because he plays such hard defense, and you could tell our team's starting to get tired out there, and Wendell's had to play a lot of minutes, and he shot the ball way too many times, 2 games in a row. But, all right, Matt, pick a stat you feel like is, indicative of why we lost the game.
I see 3, so I'll be good, and I'll only pick one, and then you can pick one, and then I'll say the other. Mine may surprise some people. I think this is indicative of the stylistic thing I was just talking about. How about Arkansas beating us in fast break points 16-2?
I didn't even realize that.
They turned us over. They got in the open court. They finished, and we only had one basket in transition. When you think about how Auburn plays and how we want to play, we just never really impacted. We settled in. We played good defense that gave us a chance tonight. But we didn't get those big plays, those steals, the leak outs for big baskets. And when we did, Arkansas's transition defense was terrific. And then on the other side, Arkansas got a lot of easy baskets at key moments in the game. And so that's probably the one I would go to first, but there's 2 other glaring ones in my mind.
I think the one I'm going to pick, I think the 2 other biggest ones, in my opinion, the 3 biggest things are turnovers, the fouls, and the free throws. For me, I'm very ticked off about the offensive fouls. I've never seen that many offensive fouls in a game. I feel like, it's fine. Some of those, I think Arkansas is pretty good at picking some of those up. Some of those were real. Some of those were super soft. Some of them just didn't happen at all. Some of them were flops. So it's very annoying me. Some of the weird calls on Arkansas on Flanagan with the hook and holds and stuff from the free throw line. Like, I've just never seen this stuff. I think it's one of those things that, like, you could call a lot of that stuff at any point. You just don't as part of the game because the game sucks if you call that. This game was kind of weird to watch because of some of that stuff. But ultimately, that's not what I'm going to pick. And I do want to keep talking about the fouls after this. But you pick the turnovers. I'm picking the free throws. 47% from free throws. Unacceptable. I probably picked that one too because there's a little, like, at the end of the game stuff that makes you, like, think even harder. But, like, man, down the stretch, I don't know. Maybe there was some in there, but we missed like 6 in a row at one point down the stretch. That was just brutal. Some front end 1-and-1s and we could stay in the game. Kessler missed maybe 4 in a row. KD missed 2 in a row. Wendell missed a front end of 1-on-1. Cambridge missed a front end of 1-on-1. It was brutal. And it was a long game going into overtime and everything. But I kind of was even thinking at the time when we had the little stretch where we missed like 6 that you might look back and not like, remember that, or when you shoot 47% from free throws and then you watch the other team shoot what ended up being 81%, and it seemed like they hit everything. It was so frustrating to just watch them drain free throw after free throw. Right at the end, they missed one. And then, of course, we gave up the rebound. So brutal to watch that. I hope we don't drop in the polls or anything because this was a very tough game. Matt thinks that Arkansas played better than us. I think it was extremely even, and we were out one of our starting players at Arkansas. So the fact that it was that even looking to me, I don't feel like there was a single time in that game where I was just like, wow, Arkansas, what a good team. Wow, Arkansas, we just got beat on that one. Now, Nolte played great. They had some great drives past us, but very few times I was like, what a great moment from Arkansas. It was more like, okay, that happened. Okay, that happened. Like, I felt like it was a very much back and forth kind of game. So free throws for me. Matt was for turnovers. You definitely, one big thing people talk about, turnovers and rebounds. We won the rebounding battle, but the turnovers were pretty bad. 19 turnovers on our side to, my screen. 11 on their side.
Yeah, I mean, and I said fast break points. Obviously, turnovers and points off. We talk about points off turnovers, 24-10 for Arkansas. So that's another, obviously connected, but Arkansas did a really good job of converting those. Can I also say 8 points for us on free throws, 8 all night in an overtime game. They got 26. We lost by 4 points. Now, some of that's down the stretch fouling and things like that, but it was a big deal that we kept not making our free throws and they stayed in the game hitting their free throws. It was a very back and forth game, really. Like, it'd be really hard to explain how many lead changings. I don't even know if that's on there, maybe how many lead changes there were. Yeah, there were, well, there should be. Maybe not on what we're looking. 17 lead changes, 15 ties. That's the kind of game it was. It was really close. Auburn went down 12 in the first half and then got back within 3. So all those lead changes and ties a lot of them were in the second half. It was really close all the way. The fouls and the free throws are obviously connected. There were some weak calls. There were some things that happened on the road, but the reason I think Arkansas played better, I don't remember that many of those charges or offensive fouls that I thought were bad calls. I really don't. I thought
there was a bunch of really weak ones, super weak stuff. Like, there was that Wendell one near the end where the guy just like fell over backwards with barely being touched. And Wendell touched him or whatever. Some of these, like with the arm stuff, that was just brutal. The Flanagan hook and holds or whatever they were trying to call on those. Like,
Flanagan hooked him. Flanagan is having the same.
We saw that get called right there, though, on a free throw line.
There's a way to get away with it, and his was the most obvious thing I've seen in a while. Like, here's the thing. The guy that took some of those charges, guess what? He leads the country in charges taken. It's not an accident. Now, whether you say some of them were soft, but they clearly had a great plan to cut down on our drives getting downhill or getting those lobs. Because here's the thing. Even if Wendell throws that lob to Kessler, which we really didn't get all game, but even if he had, you still can't go through the defender. So we figured it out in the second half and adjusted some things. I thought Arkansas had a great game plan. I thought they out-ball pressured us a mile to nothing. I thought their defense on the ball and our small guards, we've talked about the small guards. Is that going to show up? To me, it was like the red flag tonight. I don't know if Zepp would have done much better, honestly. I think he would, because
I don't think they would have even played that same kind of defense if he was in. You could tell that they knew when Flanagan was the point guard. Now, overall, I think Flanagan did a decent job, but he got pressured a lot,
No.
and they could not get the ball started. He had his back to the team half the time when he was the point guard. I didn't think they ever got a real offense going, and they couldn't drive the ball.
No, it started before that. That I think. Now you're right. They were going to.
I think they did it the whole game because they knew they could, because Wendell was going to get exhausted.
They could wear him down. Well, they ate his lunch. Now Wendell almost won us the game in the last 4 minutes before taking a very questionable shot at the end of regulation. But I want people to remember about Wendell. He went on a 7-0 run by himself with some incredible shots that gave us the lead that we almost pulled out the win. So it's you can hate on the shot. We will hate on the shot eventually, but we lose easily without Wendell, obviously. But 7 turnovers. And
mine is 21 shots. It's been like this for a little bit, but it feels like it evens out overall. Usually this game, again, he had several. Like, if you're going to have to play that many minutes, we talked about in the UGA game, pass the ball some when you get up there. We have really good front court players that can do stuff. And it was a lot better. We worked the ball to Jabari a decent amount of times where we literally all right, today to this possession is a Jabari possession. And he didn't necessarily always thrive in that. He ended up with 20 points, but some of that was that 6 points at the end that were garbage, threes. That really felt like well, not garbage threes, but what I'm talking about. Like those kind of, it always seems like the team catching up hits those threes, But I just felt like Jabari, like this could have been a big moment for him, and it wasn't. And Kessler had the big moments, in my opinion.
Look, we were a defensive rebound away from Jabari potentially hitting a third straight three and sending this game to double overtime, and that would have been a
he could have pulled a McCormick against LSU and brought us all the way back when we didn't deserve it.
Jabari would have taken the shot from no matter how crazy, like we were that close to seeing, because Arkansas wasn't missing free throws until so like we were catching up because of Jabari's shots, and like they weren't giving us anything. We just kept chipping away. So
and you saw what Jabari can do in pressure moments trying to hit his three, but yet Wendell shot a logo three with 10 seconds left on the clock when we could have gotten something going. It's one of my biggest frustrations in college basketball, how often you watch a college basketball game and the team only needs a 2 and the referees are calling fouls all night long. And then for some reason, even with time left on the clock, the point guard or whoever the guard is takes an NBA 3, the stupidest thing in college basketball. And honestly, Auburn's done a great job over the years of avoiding that. I watch it so many other games where you're watching for that upset and you get so frustrated they shoot that. And Auburn's avoided it, even against UGA last week. Wendell went and drove that ball straight in, even though if I rewatched that game and I feel like that was definitely a charge. But whatever, games go both ways or whatever. But it was just, I can't believe after how much time we left had in the clock, he just went back and shot an NBA 3.
You're overestimating the time. It was at 5. When
we got the ball out of the other side of the court. When did that start? How much time was on the clock when Arkansas hit that shot?
22, 23.
22 seconds. That's entire. Like how much? You usually get 35 seconds for a possession, right? You have plenty of time to go up the court and get something going, an actual rotation.
I agree, and I think that's what the coaches wanted too. So they're going to have.
We could have had a regular play where we've done our pick and roll and could have ran in there. And if the pick and roll is not there, you throw it out to Jabari, and we just didn't do anything like that.
No. We ran. I'm pretty sure. I haven't watched it, but I'm pretty sure we ran pick and roll. They denied it. They hedged or played. They iced the ball screen at the top, and he just stepped back and shot it. My problem is, and we're in the bonus, right? So the more you attack, like you said, like that's the problem. When you're in the bonus, and if you get fouled at all, you're going to the line with a chance to potentially win the game. Anybody. And if you're shooting, it's 2 free throws. So you only have to make 1 potentially. Like you put yourself in so much of a better position. Or if we're going to jack up a shot, like you've said, and I'm really glad we got to overtime. I'm really glad Jabari did what he did, because we need to keep reinforcing, like, that's the guy. And we don't come close to winning this game without Wendell, obviously, but you still got to know. You've got to know who the guy is. If you're going to go down and go to overtime and miss a shot, you want it to be Jabari.
Jabari before those last 2 threes, he'd only hit 1 3 the rest of the game. He was 6 of 16 overall, 2 turnovers, 4 fouls, 9 rebounds. 9 rebounds, nice. But I don't know. It just felt like there was a couple moments that could have been Jabari's moments, and it just weren't. And we need him. I believe he's the best player talent-wise in college basketball. And we have seen so many great glimpses. We've seen some great games. it's time to take that next step, Jabari. Like, if he never takes another step, he'll still be tied with maybe not quite tied with Charles Barkley, but very close, and he might still be the number one pick. And he's just amazing to watch. And no matter if he stays on this level the rest of the year, we will be talking about Jabari Smith for the rest of our lives, how great it was to watch him play. And he's going to have an amazing NBA career. I know he has that next level, though. Yeah, I know he can get a dribble drive going. Like, I know he can hit a couple more of those open shots and make that alpha move. And just didn't see it this game.
I hate to say it. I think this is another game that reinforces, everybody for the last 4 weeks has been just up in his grill, and they're willing to take a couple fouls because they know he is a jump shooter. He tried today to make that adjustment, and I don't remember a basket he made driving to the lane. He missed almost everything he took going to the basket, so he's got to he did hit free throws. He was 5 for 5. He got to the line some. But
it's a good sign that he's still doing it, though, at this point in the season, because we need it to happen. I think it's still close to happening. I don't know what the adjustment is. Bruce said at the end of the last game, if he was a better coach, he would get him more open shots. And maybe you have one of the assistants still working on. I'm sure we're not some geniuses that are trying to get Jabari to take that next step. Maybe in these 4 or 5 days, they work on some of that stuff. I thought we might, we've never done a lost podcast, so we don't really know how to embrace all this stuff. Usually we do MVP, then we do pregame notes, and we go down to players. I think one interesting thing to do would be to pick a player on the other team or talk a minute about a player on the other team and just be like, okay, JD Note, super impressive. 7 of 20, 3 of 9 from 3, 11 of 14 from the free throw line, 4 blocks, 3 steals, 5 rebounds. Just a super impressive guy. One of those guys that they get the ball to every play, and he's dangerous every play. And it's the kind of guy that thrives in college basketball and thrives in March. And they talk about in college basketball how big of a deal the guards are, and we just don't have that same level of guard. And that's why a lot of people for the season didn't pick us as where we should have been now, because it's such a guard heavy, the college basketball as a whole, so guard heavy. And so we watched another guy do that tonight. We don't have that guy. Wendell and KD, amazing players, have done so much better than we thought they could have done. But JD Note is the kind of guy that they were looking for when they were picking preseason whatevers, as you need a JD Note kind of guy. But super impressive.
Well, and he's a senior. I mean, in March, it's experienced guards. We have guards with experience, but it was at Georgia in mid-majors, and this is their first, real test in this level. So here's the difference. You mentioned the shooting. I don't care. JD didn't shoot the ball well tonight for him. I mean, he was okay. He had 28 points, but he got to the line all the time. But here's the thing. He handles the ball all the time, and he was Zep Jasper tonight. He was Zep Jasper against us every possession, and the only reason we almost came back and stole that game is because they took him off Wendell. I have no idea why, unless he was just completely gassed. He didn't look gassed. They switched the defensive coverage out of that last timeout, and it was weird. I don't know what Arkansas was doing. He dominated where the ball was. And here's the thing. How many times did JD Note have the ball tonight? He had 1 turnover. Wow. The difference in Wendell and Note's turnovers was almost the difference between the team's turnovers. And look, I'm not trying to bash Wendell. Wendell's SEC Player of the Week. He is a warrior. He will battle. At his size, he has some limitations. But, man, where would this Auburn team be without how Wendell Green is playing?
And to be fair, switch this to Auburn Arena, completely different game. And we're not saying any of this stuff, really. I'm sure JD has a way worse game. I'm sure he just scored 28 in Auburn Arena or Neville Arena. We'll talk about that later. Note also played 41 minutes. We're going on and on and on about how many minutes Wendell Green's had to play. This guy played more than Wendell Green by 3 minutes 3 minutes. And he didn't look maybe because we're paying more attention and we know exactly how Wendell looks when he's not gassed, the difference. But,
here's the difference. And they talked about it on the broadcast. He is in elite shape. And I'm not saying Wendell's not, but he played.
Wendell got a little pudge on him, doesn't he? Wendell got a little pudge on.
JD played the same amount of minutes as Wendell the other night against Georgia. And did they look anything? I mean, and JD was defending at an incredibly high level. So like you said, that's a great way to talk about, there's usually, if this Auburn team loses, there's a good chance a player on the other team or a couple players just had a tremendous night. And Note he stirred the drink for the whole thing. Now, I thought everybody else on Arkansas played great. They had a good plan. And Musselman's kind of a jerk. If you listen to his interview, nobody likes him really, I don't think. Kind of like people don't like Bruce when you lose. You kind of hate to see the other coach getting upset about random stuff. But he did say, and I thought this was true, they showed up and they really thought that they had a good game plan and they could beat the number one team in the country, and they weren't hoping. They really thought they were going to. And they did. I thought they played kind of how we feared they would play. It, to me, I don't want to sound negative, because for me, I'm so encouraged that this Auburn team could play like that in this environment with everything that happened. And like, they could have easily won this game multiple ways and multiple times. Like, it says so much about our group that they were right there when so much was going wrong.
It felt, I mean, the game went to overtime. So it's always, I feel like everything we're going to break down, and I'm going to be like, this one thing, that one shot, this one. Sometimes when you lose by 4 points in overtime, but it feels like Arkansas, I mean, they went on an 8-minute run at one point where they didn't score a single point. I think that was at the end of the half, maybe, where they were up 12 and we shrunk back to 3, which was amazing, into the half to get it back to 3 to keep us in this game, because they had, you know, I don't know if punked is the right word or not, but they hit us in the mouth in the second half. It's not, or the end of the first half. And luckily we just couldn't seem to hit that one shot, that one free throw, that one. It was like that a lot in this game, that we just could not seem to hit that. There was like a moment there where they were up 10 for, it felt like forever. Each team just kept missing. Maybe on my side, it felt like we were playing good defense, and that's why they weren't hitting their shots. On our side, man, it felt, I know we got a ton of second chance points. At one point we were leading by a lot by that, but it felt like we still missed a ton of them. We got a decent amount of offensive rebounds and still just could not get that ball to go down. There was times where I was texting, there's a lid on the goal. We cannot seem to do anything. We weathered that storm and came back, but man, some of those shots just, it felt like they kept giving us moments to either A, come back during that run where we were down 10 and just felt like forever we were down 10. We finally busted through and got it back to 3. And then when we were leading, they kept giving us chances to hit that 3, to hit the alley-oop, to hit that 2, or hit that free throw, to get a lead that felt like they weren't going to come back on. We just kept not doing it. We kept not getting on their throat, basically. And eventually it switched back the other way. You know, it goes back a lot with free throws, like I said, too, that we kept being like, we could have gone up 4, and instead we didn't go, we stayed the same, or we could have gotten it back to 2, and we just didn't hit any free throws. It was so frustrating down the stretch.
Yeah, it's easy to forget we were up 4 or 5 in the last 2 minutes of the game. Wendell had really gotten hot and put the team on his back offensively.
We shot 25% from 3, and that was, and like, I don't even know what the percent was before Jabari hit those last 2. It was probably below 25%. I mean, shooting it away is not great, but it's a trend at this point. Not even at home have we been shooting great 3 percentage. I don't know what to say about it. I mean, I know like Flanagan got another, check mark. He got another airball 3. He didn't take a charge this game, which is crazy surprising for how many charges got called this game, but he did get those hook and holds, which was basically the same thing.
That's a charge.
They took another offensive foul. Yeah, it's crazy that he keeps doing that. I think maybe I thought when he came back, the 3 percentage would go up a little bit. And it's crazy when you have a guy like Jabari who's averaging 40% from 3 to still only shooting 25%. Doesn't help that Wendell keeps shooting these logo 3s, which is fine. Take 1 or 2 of those a game and take it in like a transition, or take it like in a moment. Stop shooting those like as part of the offense. Like, it's just not a thing. KD didn't hit anything tonight. He's 0-1, so it's not bad, but we can get into KD later. Not one of his games.
Let's talk about something good, and we'll take a little break. Walker Kessler tonight was kind of he was kind of the foundation when everything was crumbling. I thought 16 points, 19 rebounds, 5. How many blocks did he end up? 7, 8?
7. We may never see another guy like Kessler again, man, especially not on a Bruce Pearl team. It is so much fun to watch him play. He's a freak. He's an absolute freak. This stat line is ridiculous. 16 points, 19 rebounds. We got to see the record books on like different rebounding games. I was really hoping he could like pull off a 20-20 game, and he could have maybe without fouling out, but we played him a lot of minutes. I texted Matt, like, we need Kessler to play the rest of the game if we want to win this game. We had to take him out with around the 4-minute mark and put him back in around the 2-minute mark at the end of the regulation. But what a performance from that guy. You hate to see him get fouled out like that when he didn't deserve it. He got a foul on a freaking over the back. He wasn't even touching the guy's body, had his hand straight up, grabbed the ball, and then let go of it. No, it's bull crap to call that for the 5th foul. Matt never thinks the referees get anything wrong.
I do. I get mad at the refs all the time, but that's a clear over the back. He shouldn't have It's hard to blame. I'm not mad about that. Here's what I'm mad about with Kessler. How about one of our 4 players on a play that was broke? Now, it was Kessler's fault. He turned it over.
Didn't he get an offensive rebound, then turn it over, though?
No. He got a defensive rebound, threw it to Wendell, and it got intercepted. So it's his fault. Okay. But here's the thing. When you've got that guy, and it's 4-on-1, there's a good chance he's going to get a block or affect the shot.
One. Yeah.
Whereas one player, and it ended up getting him a foul because no one would run back. And look, these guys, they gave it all. They left it all out there. I'm not trying to, but that was one. There was another. It felt like 3 of his first 4 fouls were like other guys putting him in really bad spots where he picked these up. So that's what was frustrating to me. I thought he did a great job. Note got him a couple times with like step back threes, but it's as good as you can do defensively as a 7-1 player. He was everywhere. He was terrific. He continues to show the variety of his game. He had our highest 3-point shooting percentage tonight, 2 for 5, 40%, which is terrific. Free throws were he missed. He made his first 2, missed his last 4. They were big when he missed.
I feel like he was tired, right? It felt like he looked exhausted out there, and that's
and Jackson wanted
even if you're exhausted, you think
Jackson wanted him to play the entire second half.
Well, I think it led out to see that what happened when he didn't play. We went down. I think like at that, I know the free throws suck or whatever. They missed the free throws. You make those free throws
and the foul. Like that's why you can't play. He's already playing more than any big guy I've ever seen.
We could talk about that too, though. No one in the starting lineup had less than 4 fouls. Like it all came down to how many offensive fouls got called. Like you could say each one of those they just don't get called at home like that. It's so frustrating that it feels like away you get these weird fouls that you never get at home, and it just even it out. I mean, how many times I went to overtime, but 5 fouls for Kessler, 4 for Jabari, 4 for Wendell, 4 for Flanagan, 4 for KD. Like that doesn't happen at home. It hasn't happened all year. Like there was a weird game with offensive fouls. You got to admit that you've never seen that many offensive fouls in a game before.
I didn't get that. I mean, I didn't get that impression at all. I'm looking. KD's were all late and fouling down the stretch, so he doesn't count. Wendell, I think, maybe had 1 or 2. Flanagan maybe had 1 or 2. I don't remember.
Wendell had a couple. Wendell had 3 of his 4 fouls were offensive
they were?
fouls.
I didn't remember 3. I know he got a really cheap one on defense, and I know he had I felt like he had 2 defensive, but I don't remember. I'm just saying
there are no more foul numbers if there aren't so many offensive fouls. And you can take about half of those and be like, okay, it's fine.
Kessler didn't have any. I mean, over the back.
I think Kessler did have one that I was listening to the radio call and they thought it was on Wendell, but it was actually on Kessler, an offensive foul. I can't remember, like some sort of moving screen or something.
Oh, there was a really bad moving screen call against him. That was terrible. I remember that. Yeah.
He always gets at least 1 or 2 bad calls. I guess it's because we're paying so much attention to every foul he gets because we know he needs them, in the lane. But like, man, it feels like he always gets 1 or 2 bad ones. But he did get a lot of great blocks tonight that I think they're all clean. I'm glad he's getting the respect he deserves on those blocks. But the Arkansas fans definitely wanted a foul. But I think that's half reaction to the fact that he got such amazing blocks that it feels like usually the college basketball refs just blow the whistle. We had at least 2 blocks tonight. One from Kessler and one from Cardwell, straight blocks on dunks. They were going for the dunk, and he rejected the dunk, and you just never see that.
The Kessler one might be the best block I've ever seen. I'm trying not to overreact.
It wasn't just sometimes you see a forward block. The guy is going for a one-handed killer dunk, and the guy puts his hand on it. It's almost like a jump ball. It wasn't like that. The guy was two-handed dunking, kind of past Kessler, and he got his hand in there and just slammed it onto the rim, I believe.
Well, and where did he come from? He was not, it was not his man. He was at the free throw line.
Behind him. Yeah.
He was at the free throw line.
Stretch Armstrong, man, with those long arms.
and you would think if you've watched basketball, man, it is a risk to go up and get these shot blockers because when they're going in for a dunk like that, there's so much force. And for him, he just doesn't look imposing. And I don't know physically, just with physics, I don't know how he got from the free throw line to the spot. And it wasn't like he blocked it and it made the ball move and he missed the dunk. It was a complete, just took the ball and it hit the backboard and he got, we'll never remember that now because we lost, but what an incredible play.
I think another thing with Kessler that is underrated if you're not watching for it, because I watch sometimes that him just running up and down the court, how impressive it is at that size that he can run the speed he does up and down the court. And there's always several times a game. We've already talked about the hedging the screens and how when a point guard gets on him, we're actually kind of excited. I mean, he does get blown by every once in a blue moon, but honestly, it usually just completely stops the play while the point guard tries to figure out what to do. Also, people are scared to death from a 3-point line. How many times do we see this game and other games now when our guys are closing out? They don't shoot that three. Kessler's closing out. Jabari's closing out. They don't shoot it. It's pretty impressive how often they don't shoot that when we're like closing out from like the paint, basically. But the other super impressive one, if you're just watching, is when he's running down the like after a rebound or something, he's running down, the other team's point guard's kind of pushing it a little bit. You can always see this kind of moment where Kessler's like a little bit even with the point guard, and the point guard's thinking to himself, I'm going to push the ball. I'm going to get past Kessler or whatever. And Kessler almost always hits a little bit of a second gear and is in the lane, and the point guard rears back up again. And most guys would just get blown by. Wendell does it all the time to other guys that are big guys. If he pushes down the field and he sees that center is not in the lane, he just pushes right through. He doesn't always go for the layup or whatever, but he'll switch it back around. It kind of gets the whole offense going. Kessler almost always gets in there right before that point guard. The point guard, it starts the offense up. It's pretty impressive. It doesn't happen all the time.
It is. I mean, I hope people appreciate how much of a unicorn he is. It really is astounding. I think
we haven't even talked about his threes.
I just did. I say he had the highest 3-point percentage on the team, 2 for 5. They left him open. It was fascinating. And I'm not surprised teams are starting to play us this way, but they just didn't guard the 5-man.
Yep.
Outside. They just left Cardwell wide open. They left Kessler wide open. I think Kessler could have shot a couple more because there were stretches in this game where, and I'm thinking about the first half in particular, you said it wasn't that impressive. Well, I haven't seen our offense look that. I didn't know each trip down the court if we were going to be able to get a decent shot, like not even a good shot.
50-50 because we're missing our point guard though too. So there's like 50%. No, it's 50% because they're leaving someone in the paint and daring us to have either Kessler or Cardwell shoot that three. And it's an issue that we need to figure out. And then 50% because it's Alan Flanagan, he can't seem to get that offense going. And it's fine. I thought he was fine as a backup point guard, but he's not getting the pot stirred or whatever. And we played some weird lineups too that didn't have a lot of good offensive guys. And then KD did not help out. He should have been the guy that when Flanagan was in, that KD could have kind of made some of those drives and got in there. But then that was the 50% where they were leaving somebody in there and making our centers come out. It was kind of like throwing us off.
It's a two-pronged attack.
The second or third time that's happened this year.
It's a two-pronged attack. You leave the center and you say, hey, Kessler, if you can make 5 threes this game, that's fine. We'll take our chances.
He's got a good shot. We said it all year that his shot looks good. It hasn't gone in the way we hoped it did. This one, it finally did go in the way we hoped it would. Cardwell also shot one because they were leaving I didn't even blame Cardwell for shooting that because they were leaving him so wide open. At that point, we could not get the offense going. At that point, I was like, yeah, you kind of just have to shoot that.
No, here's the problem. Not only did they play off the center, they had every other defender blanketing our guys in the first half. Cardwell shot it because he took 10 seconds trying to find anyone else.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That I was cool because he was so wide open and nothing else was happening. So I was just like, sure, shoot that.
The reason, I just want to point out for a listener, people maybe who didn't watch, like the reason nothing was happening was not because we weren't moving or trying to get our offense going, or it wasn't because Zepp wasn't on the floor, because Arkansas out-hustled us and outworked us on the defensive end in the first half. Now, credit to our coaches. I thought we adjusted. Our offense was much better in the second half. Maybe part of that is because Arkansas just couldn't quite – we've seen this with our team. You can't sustain like 40 minutes of just insane effort on defense. But we looked as hapless offensively for about 10 to 15 minutes of that first half as I can remember in a really long time. And I'm saying that as a really big compliment to Arkansas. They were holding teams, a lot of SEC teams, to 50s and 60s points-wise in that arena, and we saw why. Their defense is probably the biggest reason they're on this hot streak right now.
And if you listen to Sonny Smith on the radio, it's because they were holding our players constantly on all the cuts, and they weren't calling the holds on the cuts. But, I don't know. I wasn't watching quite close enough to see if that was going on. But Sonny's there in person, and Sonny also, I think he's he's also a homer at times.
Well, the fact that I will say, if I had one frustration, and credit J.D. Note as a senior experienced player, they let him – we talk about Zepp sometimes, how are the refs going to call some of those they didn't call any of that the entire game on Note, and it just gave him the ultimate green light to just hound whoever had the ball when his man.
And we can talk about this too. This is always so frustrating in college basketball. I'm sure it happens in NBA too, maybe, but sometimes the refs let it go a little too far during a game and everything gets really rough. And then all of a sudden they decide we're going to start calling everything to slow this game down. And it gets like this extremely frustrating, like 5 or 6 minutes where the players have to start adjusting to how the referees are calling it. And man, luckily this game, it felt like kind of even back and forth, other than maybe some of these offensive fouls that I get irritated about. But a lot of games, we've seen some games where that doesn't end up being even, where one team doesn't adjust the way they need to quick enough. The other team adjusts quicker and the whole game gets skewed off of that. It's so frustrating to watch. Just get it right the first time, refs. Like, frustrating. All right, we can look through pregame notes if you want to.
All right.
Let's do it. All right. Matt's first pregame note. Can Jabari assert his will in a tough road game similar to the trip to Tuscaloosa?
No, not till the end. I mean, he was 14 points with probably 3 of 12 shooting in regulation or something like that. I mean, I thought they did a good job on him, and I thought he tried to make some play, but he continued to. He was better. He wasn't as bad as Missouri or Georgia, but just not enough, not what we needed in that environment.
I think we've harped on a lot that he needs to be able to drive the ball and take the ball in, and I think that's huge in college basketball and for this team in general. That when your shooting's not going down, you can drive the ball and get fouls. I thought Alan Flanagan was going to be that guy. Hasn't quite been there. Katie Johnson's kind of hit or miss sometimes if he's going to get that foul call. Wendell's been great, but he's not going to get a foul call, and he's not going to get tough twos when everybody's collapsing in on it. And so it's frustrating a little bit that Jabari, the freak athlete he is, has not been able to go down there and get those tough twos. He gets foul calls. He's actually a really great foul collector on these jump shots because people are so into him. And he gets a lot of these like swipe through NBA type moves that only he can pull off. I just feel like on a night, if his shooting's a little off, if he could just go get 4 to 6 points on drives would be a huge thing for him to turn from that guy. We know he's uber talented. We talked about those guys on other teams that always get theirs. He's not always getting his for how talented he is. And he would, if he could go get that 4 to 6 extra points from driving the ball.
I did want to say, I don't want people to overlook it. I mean, you say, I know it feels like that in college basketball sometimes. The losing team always makes a couple, and maybe to some extent you're right. I'm telling you, he was. I have zero doubt if Jalen Williams can seal off the other Jalen Williams and hold on to that defensive rebound, that Jabari probably makes a shot to send this double overtime, and it becomes this like God-like moment for him because they were not easy threes. I mean, sometimes you see guys get wide open threes because the defense doesn't want to foul and you run something like he hit some tough. So I'm really glad he had that moment. It's great experience for him. We know there's going to be big, pivotal, clutch shots he's going to have to hit as we go through this season. But that was great. We saw the cape come out a little bit there. I need to see the cape a little more.
I think I already know your answer at least for me personally. When the game's on the line and you got 10 seconds or 20 seconds left, shot clock off, it's a tie ball game. I want the ball in Jabari's hands for a jump shot or 3. And I mean, maybe like, I don't know. It just feels like we're not getting it. Like it was very frustrating for Wendell to keep the ball on that one. I know that you could talk about how they blew up the screen or whatever, but maybe you talk about Bruce needs to draw something better up, but Jabari's got to get the ball in that play.
Yeah. If you want to pick at things, you can pick at the shot. Bruce had a timeout. I mean, he could have stopped it. I think usually you want to play it out and not give the defense a chance to set up. But once he saw that possession not going the way he wanted, call your last timeout. Even if it's 5 seconds left, that's fine, or 6. I
mean, how many good out of bounds plays have we seen this year? We've seen a lot of good out of bounds plays where we've scored out of that by backing up Jabari into it or Flanagan into it or throwing up to Kessler. We could have planned something out like that.
All his good stuff. The stuff that people talk about with Bruce is the baseline on the baseline out of bounds. So, but you're right. You could draw anything up, and best of all, you could just get the ball to Jabari and let him do something and maybe get fouled.
We've seen how he does that, right? He doesn't have to be like he's the only guy on the team that doesn't have to be open. Correct. Anything is open for him. Correct. So it'd be great to see it because everybody's going to be taken. So I would have loved to see him get the ball. We have not seen that yet this year. We have not seen the closest thing you can think of. I guess Wendell, game winner against UGA, which was a little dubious, but good for him. KD in the UConn game, going down there and going get those hard twos. Great for him, but I still don't want to have to rely on that. KD in the Missouri
game.
Who?
KD in the Missouri game.
KD in the Missouri game. You're just trying to collect these different end of game scenarios so you can do it come even bigger games. And I want to see Jabari win us a game because I think he's going to need to later on. I don't want to wait till, mid-March to hope that he has that,
That's what hurts. That's what hurts because it's a perfect opportunity because the worst you can do tied at 66 with the ball and the clock running down is if Jabari misses the shot, we go to overtime. It's okay. Like it's the perfect time for that.
Could have turned the knob to alpha, right? Like he's already alpha, but like you get him the ball at the end of the game like that and he hits a game winner, all of a sudden everybody knows, get Jabari the ball at the end of the game because look what he did against our,
I will say, it's easy we always, I think in society, my guy Ryan Russillo, shout out to Russillo podcast on Ringer Networks. He always, we as a society play the results all the time. And if Wendell makes that shot, he's a god. And but I think everybody agrees. And at least I felt in the moment, you're like, it's Jabari. Like it's got to be Jabari. We're tied. Give it a chance to win the game. Get fouled. Like it's Jabari. He's our best free throw shooter. He's our best 3-point shooter. He's all these things.
I would have hated the shot either way. I would have celebrated and had a great time and immediately got on this podcast and said, Wendell, stop taking awful shots from these gamers. I'm not going to work out all the time.
Is it worse? Is it worse than the Horace Spencer 3 in the Elite Eight?
Nothing's worse than the Horace Spencer 3 in the Elite Eight. Luckily, we won, so it doesn't matter. Just like this Wendell one, if we'd won in overtime, I wouldn't have cared, But next one is, how does Bruce handle the point guard position? Does Zep play more Cook minutes? Another point guard. We can't let Wendell play 36 minutes again. Wendell played 38, but that's with overtime.
He played 33 in regulation, so we did cut it a little. That's about what Wendell usually plays, so that's better. However, like I mentioned, I thought Wendell was getting hounded the whole game. He probably needed to be in the upper 20s, ideally, in this game, the way he had to work for everything he got. No Preston Cook, made the decision not to trust him there. I'm okay with that. He decided not to do it KD, which I'm okay with. Playing against the guy who did it last year. I didn't sense – I mean, there were a couple possessions where Flanagan was point guard where he either got a turnover or made a mistake. I didn't feel like that's why we lost, though. So
I don't think it's why we lost it. I actually thought Flanagan played fine as the point guard backup. I didn't expect great things from him. I didn't expect what Zep could do or anything like that. I will say it was tough for us to get our offense going during it. But after watching the disaster of last year's point guard play, he looked fine, Like you're right. I don't think it was the reason we lost the game or anything. Like the last game, I think it was much more glaring that we had issues at the end of the game with how often Wendell played. Also, I'm still irritated with how many shots Wendell took. 21. It's just too much for how many guys we have on this team. So their last one is, can Auburn get 4 or 5 guys to score in double figures? Our depth might be the difference.
Yeah, I thought this was a big thing. And I did want to point out, you're right, that's a lot of shots for Wendell, but Wendell had the best shooting percentage of any non-center on this team today. So it's not like he was he made his share, but it is too much. The depth of scoring, I meant to mention it earlier. Auburn's bench points, we've been annihilating teams with our depth. We lost 16-13, only 13 points from the bench. That's massive. And not only that, KD was a no-show. Maybe his dislocated finger has something to do with it. I don't know. That was bad. Flanagan with 6. We needed, my point with that pregame note was I felt like a couple guys needed to step up and help with the scoring. I knew this was going to be a low-scoring game. I meant to bet the under, and I completely forgot. Actually, it went over because of the overtime. So that's how sports gambling works, kids. But I just think,
when's the last time we had a bench guy? It feels like it's been a bit since we had a bench guy contribute to the point where we felt like, oh yes, that guy did a thing. Sure, Wendell's a bench guy, but like a Jalen Williams going off for 9 points or a Cardwell going off for 8 or something like that.
Yeah, Jalen had his 14 against Florida. You're right. We're not, but I think it's been the and you're right. Wendell being a bench player really skews that number. I just felt like even with the starters, we needed 4 or 5 guys to be effective. And it was definitely the Kessler, Wendell show. And then Jabari Jabari was in the low double digits in regulation. So we just didn't get enough help from everybody scoring wise tonight.
Feels like we've taken a big drop off from our bench. Maybe that's what happens when you move from out of conference to some of our lower SEC teams, like these bench players can match up, and then we have a team like Arkansas or a team like Kentucky or something, and they just don't match up as well. And so you need your starters to really play more minutes.
Well, and just think about, and look, I'm not trying to be hard, but, I thought Cambridge and Chris Moore did some really, really good, tough, gutsy things tonight. But ultimately, when they would get a rebound or they would get a loose ball or they would get a good pass, they just couldn't do anything with it. They couldn't score. They would throw it away or miss free throws or whatever. So
shout out to Cambridge for all his offensive rebounds he's been getting. 5 offensive rebounds in this game. He just seems to have great timing on them, and he's an athletic freak, so he can kind of get up on top of people, which is keep it up, man. There's some big possessions where he gets the offensive rebound, but I can't say it's annoying. He keeps getting them and cannot seem to get back up with them to score. Like it's been a little frustrating to see that part of it, but I'm still super impressed. I don't know how to adjust that, maybe get them and then immediately pass. I don't know.
Well, I think he's kind of in the mental state of like, it's in his head a little bit. He had an easy layup he missed off of one in the first half. And it's hard. He's so athletic, but when you're standing 2 feet under the basket and you're 6'5" or 6'6", you can't like just elevate over a center and dunk on him. Like, that's not his game. So
he's always been like that too, right? Like I really wanted him to develop a dribble drive game. I thought he had that in him. And then we realized like earlier this year that he just does not seem to have the touch on his layups when he does that. Same thing when he's getting these offensive rebounds, the touch on the layups when he has to like go straight up in contact, it's just not quite there.
Yeah, but 9 rebounds for him. He had as many rebounds as Jabari. So credit to him.
It's impressive. Like I'm glad he's been figuring out other ways to use that athleticism. Mine are who plays backup point guard, got to adjust after a bad second half against UGA. We saw Flanagan did it. I like that plan. I think that was a good plan, better than playing Preston Cook. I thought like overall, I felt good. Like we're looking forward to having Zep back for not only the point guard, but probably even bigger, the defense, and just like being able to stir the drink a little more than Flanagan, in my opinion. But overall, I thought it was a much better plan. I'm glad. I don't feel like they came in, and got flabbergasted or anything.
Yeah, and you have to think, right? Like Wendell played 33, like I mentioned, so they cut 3 more minutes out of his 40-minute rotation, like in regulation. If we had hit a shot there, if Wendell hits that 3 or Jabari hits a shot, we win the game. I think you look back and you would say Wendell, man, he like carried us in the last 4 minutes. He wasn't nearly, even though he was clearly tired throughout the game and he took a couple falls that were tough. I still think the narrative would have been, oh man, we did a much better job with Wendell. He came through in the last 4 minutes. He was fresh. He was able to play. So
hit a couple more free throws and the game's different. He went 0 of 1. If he just hit the first 2 on that, the 1-and-1, things look a little different. Might win the game on that. My next one is, do we find ways to work the ball to Kessler and Jabari? We clearly tried to. I feel like we really did try to get Jabari at times, like where they would just like get it to him no matter like hell or high water, get the ball to Jabari and let him do his thing. It's tough. I wish we could get him some open shots. I wish it wasn't all ISO stuff. And Bruce said after UGA game, and he said it before about other players, that he would get better shots if he was a better coach or whatever. I think that's just not how we like practice, I guess. I don't know. Would love to get him some open shots. He went 6 of 16 from the field and 3 of 8 from 3 of those last 2 threes being, he was 1 of 6 before that. So I don't know. And then Kessler, I don't feel like we worked the ball to him very well, but he still went and got his, which I'm absolutely loving, that he just goes and gets his no matter what. And I don't think it can be replicated. I don't think this is like a thing where we can recruit nice centers like Kessler and like do cool things the same way we're doing now. I think he's just going and getting half his points seem to be from rebounds or cleaning something up or some of these lobs, so I wish we could find there's always at least 1 or 2 plays per game where he has a good post up and they just don't give him the ball. And it's frustrating. So, but that's college basketball.
I'll push back just slightly and say, this is going to help us tremendously with anybody who wants to play in the NBA, because to play in the NBA as a center, you have to be able to shoot. You have to be able to have the green light to work on that and actually like add it. And he is clearly going through that process since North Carolina refused to let him do that. Bruce, I'm sure, pitched it, and he's coming along. If he comes back next year for some reason, I guarantee you he'll be a 30, 35% three-point shooter, and it will make his stock just continue to skyrocket. So it's helping us in that way. I think teams are just they are adjusting their defenses to take away his easy baskets and looks at the rim. So he's not getting as many of those touches in our flow of offense because teams are just adjusting. I think at the beginning of SEC play, no one was scared of Kessler offensively. And now because of the alley-oops and the rolling and the different action we run, people are watching him a lot more closely. So we do need to get him, when he gets a mismatch, give him a look. I agree, but like we've talked about, that's just kind of, it's not our MO necessarily.
We got to figure out a way to take advantage of it in different ways. If they're going to take that away, Wendell's got to be able to finish the drives. We need somebody in this team. Like, I know Wendell's had done a great job of that, like, mesh play or whatever, where he either takes the drive or he throws it up to him. We need a driver on this team, another guy. KD's so hit and miss. Flanning is taking too many charges. I don't know. It's hard to, we're number one. So I'm nitpicking, but, my last one is, can we bring the intensity at the start of both halves to avoid letting their fans get in the game early? I didn't feel like their fans, like, I don't know, I'll talk about the halves actually first. I feel like we actually started out really good in the first half. I feel like we matched their intensity, big wild atmosphere, whatever, at least apparently it's supposed to be a big wild atmosphere. We were up by a couple points going into that first time out without a Kessler foul. It felt pretty good. And then after that, it was not bad. It was bad after that or whatever. And then coming out the second half, we were down 3 to start the half, and we went immediately got I think was it Jabari 2 with a foul? That's the kind of stuff we need. So he did get that at least at one point during the game.
And not only that, but it was off of a new action that I hadn't seen us run. I'm sure maybe we had, I just hadn't seen it, where they took the point guard to the right. They, instead of Kessler going up to set a screen for the point guard, he went and set a screen down for Jabari. Jabari curled around it, didn't settle for the 3, drove in off of it, then took a mid-range, got fouled, hit it, and we were immediately tied. It was a great call out of halftime. It was something new, a wrinkle. So those things are there. And then I thought we started both halves beautifully, which again is a testament to Arkansas, because we went in on the road and had a pretty good plan to start both halves, weather the storm, and the storm just kept coming.
How did you feel about the Arkansas atmosphere? There was a big talk about it. They camped out beforehand, or at least a small number of them camped out the night before. There was a video of their fans yelling at our buses and stuff when they arrived. They were really creating a crazy atmosphere. They were showing how long their lines were. They were doing all wide out. The stadium is huge. I got into arguments online with some Arkansas fans about they think Bud Walton is just some great arena, but they hadn't been to the Sweet 16 in 20 plus years. So there was a great article. If you find any Arkansas fans, I found a great article by one of their own beat writers that was calling out their fans and saying they should be more like Auburn Arena in the article. So that was nice, but I didn't feel like the atmosphere was that crazy. Like, it was a lot of people, but I never really felt like I felt those big explosions. And maybe it's because I was listening to the radio call. Maybe the TV sounded different.
I thought it sounded great. I think it was kind of the perfect example of it's one thing to go to Missouri on the road as number one. It's one thing to go to Georgia. It's a different thing to go to Arkansas when they're a fringe. They'll be in the top 25 again. They're a good tournament team, probably be a 4, 5, 6 seed, maybe higher if they keep, winning. So I thought the crowd was great. I thought it was our first big test in that kind of building. But we clearly handled it. I didn't think it necessarily rattled us. I thought Arkansas's defense rattled us.
I feel like we've been more rattled in other games away than this one, from crowds getting going. I don't know. I just didn't feel like it played that big of a part of the game, and I feel like our crowd has done that. Maybe I'm just being like a little homer or whatever, but I don't know. It just didn't feel, I was fully expecting an amazing atmosphere and was kind of looking forward to it and thought it was good. Just didn't there was never a moment where I was like, oh my God, it's nuts, call the time,
Well, we did have to call a heat check timeout, so that tells you something.
Yeah, that's true. I'm glad we're doing that more. I'm cool with that. Call the heat checks. It almost always works out. I don't understand.
You know better than Bruce. You know better than Bruce. You heard it here.
Apparently,
No, I think it was great. The TV people, now you could say they said some weird stuff. I don't know if this is a good time to talk about it. What?
Let's talk about it, because I listened to the radio call the entire time with Sonny and Andy, which I love to do it. But it does several times I was cussing because any little thing you mess with on your phone, all of a sudden your thing cuts out and you got to start over from the timing perspective again. And I kept actually hitting voice to text message and then being like, no, I have to start over again. So I spent about half my game trying to time out the thing. But anyways, what was the TV saying?
They were just obsessed with it. From the beginning, they thought it was just this is what makes college basketball great. And I know they're selling their telecast, obviously, but they were setting the narrative for the court storming and for how great this is and how tough of a like spot this is for Auburn without their point guard, and like this place is just nuts. We haven't seen it like this in a long time.
Good.
And,
I mean, it's good from a neutral. I hope the narrative is like, oh, it was an insane atmosphere and they were down their point guard, you know, even though they put it on ESPN2 and give Kentucky, South Carolina ESPN. Just so frustrating that they can't switch that stuff around. It doesn't really matter, but it is a little bit. It's like a respect thing. You know?
They wouldn't change it anyway because of Kentucky's fan base. But anyway.
I would love to see the numbers. Let's bet on these numbers. I bet you there's more people that watched Auburn, Arkansas than that Kentucky, South Carolina game.
Maybe because we're number one, but that would be the only
exactly. One. And because they got upset against. Everyone loves to watch the upset. I tune into games all the time where I just check the score and see that number one's within a couple points, and I tune in. And they're not tuning in at Kentucky, South Carolina.
No, but I guarantee you, Kentucky has more people watching their basketball games than we do.
Maybe, I don't know.
It's don't underestimate the bandwagon Kentucky fans. It's like the Notre Dame in other sport and Alabama in another sport. It's a powerful thing. But what I did want to say, they said some weird stuff. So Kessler made that incredible block, and the lead announcer, it was 16-11, I remember. And he said, that's a game-saving play by Kessler right there. I'm like, it's 13 minutes left in the first half. What are you talking? Have you watched this team at all? And then he said at one point, it sounds like two jungles in here. Like, what are we like? Maybe because it's a 70% bigger arena or something. Like, that seems so unnecessary. Like, why? Yeah. I don't know. There was some weird stuff.
I think they probably heard the talk about atmospheres or whatever. And then his little catchphrase, he's probably got a bunch of buttons in front of him, like radio drops, and hit the wrong catchphrase at that time, you know? I wanted to talk about with atmosphere stuff, and we're talking about right now, getting the court stormed on us. It was weird to watch it happen to us. Like, I love that we're at that point, even, you know, in our Final Four year, in our SEC championship year, SEC tournament stuff, our year where we started year 16 or 17, you know, I don't think we've had the court stormed on us yet. So it's just another, like, it almost like, you know, it sucked to lose. I was upset, but at the same time, I enjoyed watching them storm the court because I was like, it's cool that we're respected enough to get I was almost a little afraid. I knew they would because the atmosphere is so crazy and the kids love to storm, and there was so much built up with this one. But it would have been super crappy if we got number one and maybe play it at Kentucky or another school and they didn't storm when we were number one and we got beat. It would be like a sign of like disrespect that our name is that bad that even when we're number one, we won't get stormed. So it was nice to at least get that check mark of being like, we're that good. People storm the court when they beat us. They take their shorts off. They go crazy. You know?
Bruce always says he wants to make history. If Auburn historians out there, if anybody could let us know, has this ever happened in Auburn basketball history? Have we ever had a court stormed against us? I would love to know that.
They showed the 1999 or 1998 team, the team that got an overall one seed or got a one seed, and they lost Arkansas by like 20 points.
Did they storm the court?
They were showing pictures from it and stuff, but I didn't think to look if they stormed it or not. You know, I wasn't thinking about that at the time.
What else was I going to say? I had something else on that. Yeah, it was weird. I kind of thought Arkansas, the way they carry themselves, like as a fan base, thinking like they are a basketball school and they act like it. I was a little surprised they stormed it, to be honest. Like that.
I was afraid they wouldn't. It's weird, right?
Yeah, it is.
But if you interact with Arkansas fans this weekend, they're going to get insufferable, I bet, after this win. But just talking to them before this game with the hype and stuff, they really see themselves as like the permanent second best, like basketball. Like, they're basketball. You should respect their habit. Bud Walton is just amazing. Blah, blah, blah. It was built in 19. They're kind of stuck, I feel like, 10 or 20 years back when they were in the 90s, and they still have this like. I honestly, as a really like, I mean, I've been paying attention for a long time since a kid, but not like maybe it's national wise. I told Matt this too. I was like, for the last 25 years that I've paid attention, they haven't been any good. So it hasn't like really meant much to me, but I get how maybe just like another 5-10 years older, they still hold themselves as if they're like cemented themselves as some great basketball power that they're just waiting to come back. I feel like they just had a blip in the 90s. You know, I think several teams have had that. I don't think Florida fans hold themselves like they're some great basketball school because they had that one team that won 2 national championships, you know?
Well, this is not a blip. I've been saying it since 2 years ago, last year.
They were never good before the 90s, really, and then all of a sudden they were really great in the 90s.
Yeah. I just mean now we're not in a blip. We're going to deal with these guys for the next 5 to 10 years. Musselman's a great coach. Unless he goes somewhere else, they are recruiting arguably better than us. They have that passion, that history. I think they're a problem. And don't look now; they're 2 games behind us in the standings. They're a really good team, and on one hand, I'm glad that we don't play them again in the regular season. But on the other hand, you feel the sting of this because you don't get a chance to like even that out back at home. Mm-hmm. So, it kind of stinks in that regard. If you knew we were going to win in Auburn Arena, you'd rather play them again.
Well, not to get too far in the schedule, I want to get through the players before we get into SEC stuff. But, we thought we had really lucked out on our schedule looking at that. We got Kentucky only at home. We got LSU only at home. And there was one other team we got only at home that we are excited about. Maybe I'm just thinking, I don't know. But anyways, I felt like we'd gotten through our hardest games. And then you have at Arkansas and at Tennessee were our next biggest ones kind of after like those first 3. I guess LSU, Arkansas, and at Alabama, I guess is what I'm thinking. It was those 3 that we got through that felt like, wow, we just made through those 3. Like, who's going to beat us, So we lost to one of the last hard ones. But this Arkansas team's so hot that, we might look back and like be upset that the only time we played was at like they might end up getting second in the SEC, or by God, we lose 2 more and they tie us up or whatever. And we're like pissed that like, man, you look back at the schedule, we wish we'd played LSU only away, like we thought LSU was better,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would have been a big one to get. We talked about it, this is a big opportunity to really keep the pedal down. And, it was going to happen. We've talked about it. Maybe this is a good time to just not reflect, but just, this was the longest winning streak in Auburn basketball history. It tied the mark, I believe. We are the last, I believe this is true, the last Power 5 team in America to lose a conference game. So we kind of knew, if you follow basketball and if you watch the last few weeks, you knew this was inevitable. You weren't going to go 18-0, although this team made you kind of dream just because they kept doing all the things.
We just kept winning, babe. We refused to lose, and we still refused to lose in regulation.
We have not lost in regulation, which is awesome. I was thrilled we didn't mess that up, at least at the end.
Matt texted me that as soon as it went to overtime, and I was thinking it too. I was like, all right, even if, like, it just takes a little sting out of it, right? That we can still like, we have to get on here and say we've done a lost podcast, but at least we can keep bragging about not losing regulation. So
yeah,
and not losing at home either.
It was a really special run. Bruce always talks about, it's one of my favorite quotes he uses all the time. People say, adversity builds character. He always says it reveals the character you have. It can help build it, but how do you react when it's been since before Thanksgiving that this group of guys had to go to a locker room after a tough, hard fought loss where they put it all out there. If you remember that UConn game, they battled back. So many guys made great plays, and you come up short and you feel the weight of that. Can they like settle and get back home against A&M and kind of because if we're being honest, the Alabama game was awesome. I guess they played well against Oklahoma and Alabama, but it really maybe it's just these road games we've been struggling for a few weeks. Now you just hope that they can process that, and they obviously handled the UConn thing well. They got on a hot streak after. You just hope that some of the things we've talked about, the deficiencies, you hope we can like help solve some of those and find some answers so that this doesn't turn into like a lot of teams have these lulls in the season. It's such a long season. It's a grind. It really is. Everybody says that, but like you're playing every 2 or 3 days, the turnaround from going to Athens, back home briefly, to Fayetteville, Arkansas, which if you've ever made that drive from anywhere in the Southeast, they flew, but like it is a weird, strange little pocket to get to. So anyway, it was a lot. We look at the part. We've got to find that second win at some point in these next few weeks.
It sucks to go into that big moment, like for College game day against Texas A&M, where they were kind of like, it felt like they chose to go to number 1 Auburn versus Texas A&M, who's not that great, really a marquee team or whatever, to like kind of crown us as like, it's time to like, we will go to this game just because of Auburn. We don't even care who the other opponent kind of is. So it kind of sucks to go off a loss into that. But if you're going to go off a loss at some point, this is a good one because they're going to be hyped for this because of College game day, because the kids are going to go nuts. Like, good thing, because otherwise this could have been a trap game. Texas A&M's beat us at home twice in the last like 5 years. It's been really frustrating, and they're not a bad team. So it's kind of good that we can we're exhausted, but they're still going to get up for this one. So that's a good one to have in there. It's going to be really, really frustrating. We'll talk more about this in a minute, but we should beat Texas A&M. If we beat Texas A&M by 10 or whatever, we should not drop in the polls, but we will. It's going to be so frustrating. Us and Gonzaga will be the only two teams with 2 losses, and our 2 losses will both be in double overtime and overtime against good teams away like that. We should not drop it all, but I guarantee we drop below Gonzaga and maybe even another team. I'll be infuriated if we fall behind Kentucky with their 4 losses, with our 2 losses after beating them. But it's entirely possible. By the way, some of these statistician people, the Jesse Newells of the world, are still putting us 7-8. I guarantee we drop to some ridiculous number based off some sort of weird predictive like statistic or something, and we're going to end up way further back than we should have.
It's possible. You just got to be glad. And again, I know what Kansas lost, Duke lost in the last few days, UCLA, Arizona State beat UCLA, and they were almost beating Arizona, I think. I don't know if they did. So, like, everybody's
beat
losing.
Arizona. I don't know if it was that close, but all these teams keep losing around us. So it's been so nice to keep winning, and all these teams who were breathing down our neck keep dropping games. That's how college basketball is. Like, we were going to drop that game. We just waited a really long time to drop that game, didn't we?
Well, yeah, and I'm just glad we built a little buffer here. I mean, I really don't care about the polls. I'm concerned about our metrics and about March and like where we are in the tournament's in the committee's eyes. And again, this is a quad 1, so it's not going to hurt us to lose a quad 1. Everybody loses those. I'm just glad we're the number 1 overall seed by every bracketologist in the country right now. We'll see what happens in the next few weeks, but we've built ourselves a really good foundation to endure a couple of these.
We got kind of deep into that. It's our first lost podcast. Hopefully we won't have to do too many more. Hopefully we don't ever get our format together because there's so few lost podcasts. But I did want to go through the players real quick, like we usually do. We talked about Walker Kessler. What a monster. Those kind of stat lines you may never see again, or not, like, enjoy the mess out of that. Same with Jabari. We talked about Jabari a good bit already. Same about Wendell. We've talked about Wendell a good bit. The next one we can really maybe talk about is Allen Flanagan. Played the backup point guard. He actually started the game pretty strong. Hit a 3. I think he hit a good 2 where they left the lane wide open for him. I was really glad to see him drive the ball and get past it and get a foul. I wish he could have finished. And it was 6 points, 4 fouls, 3 turnovers, 4 rebounds, 1 of 3 from 3, 2 of 5 from the field. I had really high expectations for him. I still think he's a step shorter, a step slower than he thinks he is. He gets blown by a couple times every game now too. He got his airball 3. He got his offensive foul, like cut the offensive foul out and the airball 3's out. And all of a sudden I'm talking about how like he's solid. He's not great, but he's solid, but he's doing 1 or 2 too many things. 3 turnovers is too much.
Yeah, Bruce just keeps harping on defense and rebounding. I think that's because maybe they're kind of giving up on him being the offensive guy that he was last year. Not in a negative way, just if it hasn't, I was defending him for a few weeks, but hey, it's early. It's his 6th game. It's his 7th game. Whatever. Well, at this point, we're kind of into it. He still just doesn't seem quite settled, whether that was on the dribble, getting in the lane. The shot's always a little weird. He doesn't have the cleanest, like Cambridge just kind of looks off, but we've seen him hit it last year. He was really good from 3.
It looks like he's reverted a little bit. His first season was kind of like this. He wasn't a great 3-point shooter, and you didn't want him shooting 3s really. And now this airball 3 thing's just kind of getting weird that he seems to keep doing this. I don't know what to do about that, but maybe he'll be a Samir Dowdy type that comes back next year when the room's a little clearer, and all of a sudden when the ball's in his hand more, it looks a lot better. And he's the kind of player that's going to keep getting better and is going to work on himself. So the next one's Katie Johnson. Super disappointing game after a great solid run he's had. 2 points, 4 fouls, 3 turnovers, 2 steals. He did have a hamburger moment, which is always nice to see from him, which he didn't finish and went 0 of 2 from free throw line, 1 of 7 from the field, 0 of 1 from 3. The best thing you can say is at least he wasn't super inefficient with his bad game. The worst moments was the beginning of the first half. He just played awful to start the game. I think all 3 of his turnovers might have been 3 times in a row at the start of the game. He had a really awful one, and he keeps doing this. I don't know why he's doing this. Maybe they need to practice this more. He gets the ball for a decently open shot, takes too long to shoot it, dribbles it to one side, and by the time he's there, it's covered. And I mean, he's smaller, so maybe he's worried about that. But then he goes and shoots these contested threes. If he would just pull a quick trigger open three, I would feel pretty good about it. But he keeps doing that. And this one, he had the worst one ever, where he got it, had plenty of time to shoot a three, I felt like, waited, pump fake, dribble once to the side, then jumped up in the air and got almost blocked, almost not, kind of tried to pass it, turned it over. It was brutal.
Yeah, I know he posted that, you mentioned him running into the tunnel against Georgia on Saturday in the last podcast, worried about him. He posted something about dislocated finger on Instagram. Who knows, again, if that plays a role. He did play 33 minutes. I thought it was interesting that if that wasn't bothering him, Bruce chose to play Cambridge from like the 5-minute mark to the 1 minute left mark in regulation. And it was kind of weird. I'm honestly shocked that KD ended up playing 33 minutes because it seemed like he was off the floor like a lot more. You even asked, like, is he hurt? He had come back in like 30 seconds before you sent that. But I don't know. We really could have used his drives. You were talking earlier, we need somebody to drive and get to the basket. And like, he's that guy. He did it. His 2 points came off of a really nice straight line drive. And if you want to get technical and a little picky, Kessler's 5th over the back foul was because he really clanged like it was a hard layup, but he was wide open and it didn't even hit the rim. It came off the backboard.
He was pretty far from the rim on that one. He like got into a weird drive and then like it was like half jump shot, half layup
but you got to like use the backboard and at least have it go off the rim. And instead it went like off the backboard and right to the other side. And I think it probably caught Kessler off guard a little bit. Anyway, so he really struggled. And I think if you were looking for the value of KD, it's like, man, you really miss some of the things he does when he gives you not much the whole game. Like, he does some good things. We talk about the good and bad. Like, but when you don't have the good at all, you really feel it, especially with Zep out.
We might have to make a list maybe of all these things we really like seeing from this team. Like, we've gone far enough into the season to know like Walker Kessler lobs, Wendell logo threes, Jabari run stoppers, KD like going and getting tough drives when like the team is in a lull, kind of stuff like that, and like check them off each game. If you check them all off, you know you're going to win the game. And it'll be kind of interesting if we saw like of all the like the things we're known for, maybe like turning the ball over and scoring in like fast break. It feels like we're starting to get personality for some of these players. And like that Missouri game we talked about, we stripped all of them out, all the things we think we do good, all the like little moments or whatever. And then the last thing left was KD getting his points in lulls. And that's what won us that game. Well, he didn't get him in this one. He had his hamburger moment, but he just can't seem to finish the ball. Wendell also had a moment where on a fast break where he could have passed the ball or at least like stopped and collected himself. And I don't know if he even got a foul call on that one or not, but it's getting a little frustrating that we can't seem to like get a like passing or finishing our fast break situation going. Maybe it's because the guards are small. I don't know.
No, we've got to keep working at it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Next one on the list is Chris Moore. I'm glad Chris Moore stuck around, stayed in shape, and stayed ready. He didn't do much, but we needed the minutes at times. We played some weird lineups. I even took a picture of a lineup because I thought it was weird. And Bruce always plays one of these weird lineups, one possession too long, in my opinion. This one was Flanagan, Cardwell. Let's see who it is. Flanagan, Chris Moore, Jalen Williams, Cardwell, and Cambridge. Not a single offensive player on that field. Flanagan should have been one of those guys who could just leave on there by himself. He's not. I'll say it again. Flanagan, Chris Moore, Jalen, Cardwell, and Cambridge. It was weird. We played them three like kind of stops in a row where you could have gotten a player in. The first two actually worked out really well. Cardwell got a 2 in there. Someone else scored in there. It was actually kind of like a fun, like, what a weird lineup. But we actually banged down. I think maybe Jalen maybe he got 2 in there. And it was kind of like, cool, this lineup's so weird. But like, it's like almost like the underdogs are like going to work that much harder and their defense is going to be that much better. It's probably the other team maybe doesn't know what quite to do. And then we left him in there the third time through like a commercial. And that's when the other team hit a 3 and kind of like brought it back to even. And it was like,
But if you're talking about the second half, which I think you are, that group.
I think second half of 12 minutes.
That group won their They outscored Arkansas while they were on the floor.
I think they outscored them 4-3, but you could just tell in that second, like they had done well to get those 4 in the first 2.
That's garbage. That's garbage.
I think Bruce always leaves those weird non-offensive lines in like 1 too long.
But why? Like, again, we've talked about the value of Zep. That's a huge thing. But here's the problem. And I told you this. I'm not afraid to call Bruce out sometimes. We played Kessler and Jabari 3 minutes longer than they ever play to start a half. I don't know why, but it put us in that position where both of them are sitting not only that, they're sitting at the same time at 14 minutes left in the second half. Kessler could barely walk, and he had to get out. And that's why that lineup was in. So we should have kept our normal rotation so you wouldn't be in that spot. To that group's credit, they got us 2 or 3 minutes, and we survived it, and I think we actually won it while they were on the floor. So if don't blame the lineup, blame how whoever was handling subs tonight missed that early in the second.
It was still fun to watch. It was underdog style. It was cool to see they actually did win their points. But I was like, okay, that's enough. And they stayed in. I was the entire 3, like, I don't know what you would call that, 3 times that you could have a player sub out or whatever. I was clinched. I was like, at any moment, the other team is going to go on a run and our offense will be awful. Well, that was Chris Moore kind of talking about that group a little bit, talking about Kessler playing too many minutes, talking about foul trouble. Jalen's next on my list, and I wanted to see – you had a good point about putting Jalen as the center at some point. I would have loved to have seen this in that game, to see Jalen, like –
we did.
Maybe one of those – yeah, did he end up playing some?
So 2 things. Sorry, you cut me off. Best thing, you didn't cut me off. I didn't get it in. My fault. Chris Moore, it was brilliant. He struggled. He had a really bad turnover off an offensive rebound and then gave up an open 3, and I thought that was going to be the end of him. I thought Bruce was going to kick him to Arkansas or Oklahoma. But he guarded J.D. Note better than anybody on our team for the 8 minutes he played. We took Wendell off. We quit. We're like, Wendell cannot guard him. Cambridge did a good job. But really, if you go back in the first half and in the second half, Chris Moore neutralized Note more than anybody else did. And again, he's really valuable for that. He's tough. He's big. He can defend. He was a little physical with JD, but you almost had to. You had to have the Zep-like thing. So I wanted to give him credit. Jalen played center when Kessler fouled out down the stretch. This was one of those games, man. Jalen could have had a huge moment tonight. He had 2 open 3s that were beautifully in rhythm in the offense. He just missed them both. Missed a couple of his like inside shots. It really felt like this could have been Jalen's like 10 points, 4 rebounds, like off the bench, huge shots. And it just didn't happen. He's struggling. I think I listened to a podcast for an NBA guy, Austin Rivers, Doc Rivers' son, was talking about he came in as a lottery pick and he had to adjust to coming off the bench. And he said the hardest thing people don't understand, when you come off the bench, you get a couple shots and you're out. Like it's hard to get in a rhythm. And for a guy like Jalen, who started every game last year, was really important for us. I think he's clearly kind of struggling with that. It was so close. I want it so bad for him.
Mm-hmm. I felt that. I was going to mention that too, that it felt like he was this close to having some moments. We've talked about it several games now. He gets about a 3 a game, or like at least a chance at a 3 a game. And his stroke is really nice, I feel like. He kind of gets it in the flow of the game, and I always think he's going to hit it. And he just doesn't. He's not been hitting them. And they're in pretty big moments usually where I'm like, those would be perfect. Like if he could hit a 3 when Jabari's out, that'd be big, and he's athletic. Sometimes he gets the ball down there and you're like, that was a good move. He backed the guy down. And then, I don't know. He's just not finishing. He's 1 of 7 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3. He did get 2 in there, 2 points in there, but he's so close to doing something. And maybe by next year we'll see something. I think next year's team, not to talk about that too much, but next year's team, some of these guys are on the bench. Maybe they do get in rhythm. Maybe that team is like a team that we're just like glad makes the tournament and keeps a streak going. But I don't know. Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Get out of here with those shenanigans. That's ridiculous. I did want to say, I think if you look holistically at the 3-point shooting, the key to me is can Cambridge, Flanagan, and Jalen Williams, experienced guys on this team, can they start hitting their share of their 3s? Because they're going to be open. They're going to be there in the offense. You saw it tonight. You got to start hitting those. Cambridge hit 1, but he was 1 of 5. Jalen was 0 of 2. Flanagan was 1 of 3. I need those experienced guys to hit their shots when they're there a little more at a higher percentage.
What a great point. We seem to have those guys always getting open 3s, and I feel good about them shooting them. and they're just not going down. And that's why that percentage is so low. You got to, those three guys have shown they can hit their threes, especially Cambridge and Flanagan, and they're just not. And that's why our percentage is so bad. Like Jalen, it's one thing when Jalen, it feels a little more like a bonus kind of thing that I'm hoping he keeps developing. Those other two guys, it's getting a little irritating. They can't seem to hit their open threes. So the next guy on the list is Cardwell, 6 points. That's nice. 4 rebounds, 1 block. Had some solid minutes in this game. You know, it's been great to have him come in and have solid minutes. Love the energy. I don't know. Every time he gets a point, I get really excited because we know he kind of struggles on offense. They're always come off of like offensive rebounds or some sort of like feed down low. Solid minutes, man. You wish he maybe could give a little bit more. I don't know. Kessler was such a dominant guy. I don't know.
Just to be clear, Jackson.
11 minutes, actually. Never mind. I take that back.
Jackson tonight has said that he never wants Kessler to leave the floor and he wants Cardwell to have more minutes. So
well, I want Cardwell to have more efficient minutes. Like I would love for him to be a little more threat on offense. You know,
I thought he was really good tonight. The only shot he missed was that 3 that he was basically forced into because nobody else could get open. So he was good. I like the thing that's nice with him right now is he's finishing some of these shots. They're not all dunks. They're kind of going to the basket. They take a little more touch. He's had some nice rolls, getting the ball up on the rim, soft and kind of rolling in. So 6 and 4 from him in 11 minutes is really good. So great to have him. He brought the energy early when it was ugly. He was part of that group when it was down 12 that he started chipping away with some really solid defensive minutes.
You know, I take it back. You made a good point. He's doing well, and you're right. He is developing a little more some of those putbacks that aren't dunks. And he had an amazing block, like we talked about at the beginning. Another one of those that, like, it's one thing when Kessler does it, when Cardwell does it. He's also an athletic freak. He's just like Kessler's so good that when he comes in, there's such a difference that you can really like feel the other team be like, oh, now we're going to drive it, or now we're going to do something different, or don't worry about him playing offense, kind of thing. But he had another amazing dunk block. I'll have to go back and watch the highlights and hope they make it in. The last guy on the list is Cambridge. 5 points, 3 fouls, 9 rebounds, 1 of 5 from 3, 2 of 8 from the field. His big one is the rebounds. They had 9 rebounds, and 5 of those were offensive rebounds. We talked about already, but he put on Instagram, maybe, or Twitter, he like compared himself to Dennis Rodman. I love it. I love that he's taking advantage of his athletic ability in a different way than before. It's helping the team. I think we'll have another game or two where he does something like that, and it makes the difference. We win the game, and we're like, and we already had one this year where he was doing some stuff like that, and we were like, we can't give Cambridge the MVP, but we want to give him a shout out for how well he like did the hustle plays. And so I think there'll be another game this year where there'll be another one like that where we have to give Cambridge the shout out for just making so many amazing hustle plays.
And he is everywhere. I really give him a lot of credit. Takes some maturity as an older player. He is getting those everybody sees the offensive rebounds. He's blocking shots. He's flying around on defense. He's rebounding at a high level at both ends. He is doing everything right. Everything you would tell a basketball player as a coach. Like, if you're not shooting well, if you're not doing good on offense, here's the list of things you do to help the team. He is doing all of them. Really glad he got 27 minutes tonight, which is a lot more than he usually does. Part of that Zeb being out and stuff. But just great. He's doing everything right. He's getting all these opportunities with missed free throws, missed threes, missed alley-oop, one of them earlier today, which he's always amazing at catching those. It's almost weird when if it's a tough pass and he can't quite finish it, but he's close. If he keeps playing like this, I really believe there's going to be a breakthrough at some point offensively.
Well, all he has to do is hit a 3 or 2, and then all of a sudden this whole game changes. He went 1 of 5 from 3, hit 2 of those. I mean, he won them, so they hit 3 of 5 of them. They have a lucky game or whatever. All of a sudden, he's got 10 plus
11.
points, 11 points with 9 rebounds, and we're like, whoa, and 1 more rebound somehow he figures out. He's got double, and we're like we'd be giving him, if he doesn't get MVP, he gets some honorary thing just for being the guy we want to do well. I know some people have accused me of being a Cambridge hater. Not a Cambridge hater. I expect a lot from him, so then it sounds bad, but I'm like, But now that I'm seeing this, give him the praise, guys. Give him the praise. Let's talk about, that's all the players. Zep was out. We still haven't seen Lior. I think there was some talk that Lior traveled, so we thought we might see him. I don't know what to do with Lior. I've not seen any thing about him. Preston Cook didn't play. I don't know. You want to talk about SEC standings or anything? I think it's a big one now that we've lost our first one. Yeah,
I feel like there was something. Maybe not. I think we've talked about it. I mean, it's tough to lose. But when you put yourself in those last second or last minute situations enough, you're gonna lose some. So we've got to figure out our midseason lull. If I had to say a concern would be, we clearly see the value of Zep. I think everybody, if you didn't believe it, you probably believe it after the last 2 games. So we got to get him healthy, and then we have to kind of break out. And you saw little glimpses tonight. This team is battling the last few weeks. They are tough. They are warriors. They compete at a high level. We just haven't been shooting well. Like you talked about, like it's hard to win games in this league when you're not shooting well. You have to hope that that's going to kind of switch at some point and you're going to hit more of those shots and it's going to feel a little easier. But you got to earn your own luck, and that starts with bouncing back against A&M.
All right, well, we've lost our 2-game cushion against Kentucky. It's a 1-game cushion now. It doesn't feel like Kentucky's played. They played Alabama at home, I believe it was, or was it at Alabama actually?
At Alabama.
Alabama. So that was a threat to try to get them another one. I wanted both teams to lose, but I was hoping Alabama would get that little more cushion to 3 games. I feel like 3 games is a good number to expect from this team right now. We just lost like our 2 biggest ones left. There's 4 road games left, and 2 were really big ones at Tennessee,
tough,
at Arkansas. Though. You what?
They're all tough though.
They're all tough. So like these were the biggest ones. Like it's almost expected that we could lose at Arkansas and at Tennessee. Now you could still lose at Florida and at Mississippi State. That's definitely a big possibility. I mean, we saw how close Florida was even at home. It didn't feel like we ever really pulled away the way we wanted to. Castleton can give us a lot of trouble. So I think losing 3 overall is kind of like to be expected right now. Like we already lost 1 in conference now, Arkansas, lose at Tennessee, and then like a 3rd somewhere else. That I feel like that should be the baseline. So we need Kentucky to lose another game, and Arkansas already has 3. So that's really great, honestly, at this point that we're already like at that point, you know.
There's going to be losses. We've been saying it all year. I mean, and all these games are tough. If you're looking for a bright spot, and just to clarify your point, we still have to go. If you're looking at our screen here, watching on YouTube, we've got Arkansas, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Florida, 3rd through 6th in the league, pretty clearly kind of in that top half. Those are the 4 we go to. They're all top half teams in the league. We've seen how we've struggled with Missouri, Georgia, Ole Miss, and they're at the bottom 3 of the league. I mean, road wins are really hard, and we're going to have to earn beating Mississippi State, Florida, or Tennessee on the road. My question is, what does Kentucky do? Let's pull up their schedule. They beat South Carolina on the road tonight. And by the way, LSU beat A&M at A&M. So A&M continues. They're 4-7 now. They've really struggled. So I totally agree with what you said about game day. I think it's really good timing. It stinks that it's off a loss. I think we need something like that. I think the jungle's got to be out in full force. We got to kind of pick this team up, and it's going to be obviously an easy opportunity with game day leading right into the game on Saturday.
I think Texas A&M was the one I was thinking of when we looked down the schedule to begin SEC play, and we were like, okay, we got LSU, Kentucky, and Texas A&M only come home. We don't go away. Then we were like, great, those are the teams that look the best so far this year, and how Texas A&M's fallen off to where we didn't even think about them looking at that.
So here's the encouraging part. If you want some encouragement, Kentucky's remaining schedule. So they're a game behind us. I personally don't want any part of sharing anything with them. We've seen how frustrating that is in the past. I mean, you take it if that's what you get and you win a conference title, you claim it and go with it. But they host Florida Saturday. They go to Knoxville next week. Then they host Alabama. They host LSU. They go to Arkansas. They host Ole Miss. They go to Florida.
Yeah,
those are all tough. Yeah.
Yeah. I was getting a little frustrated if you go backwards in their schedule a little bit. We're cheering for them to lose their games or whatever. And yeah, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, and Alabama is tough, but Alabama's kind of trending down right now.
Alabama shot like 10% from 3 that game.
Oh, yeah, that was brutal if you don't look at that stuff. 10% from 3. Like they shoot 40-something% against us in Auburn Arena, and they go shoot 10% against Kentucky. But that's good to see that Kentucky's schedule down the stretch is definitely every game on that is losable. I think I'll be curious if LSU has got Xavier Pinson back. I know I've asked that like in 4 podcasts, but it seems like that's like a major thing for them. So maybe there'll be something there. But at Arkansas is big for them.
So if you're looking, sorry, I'm kind of bouncing around, but
we got Auburn's schedule, right?
No, this is Arkansas. So here's why I looked at this. So we just talked Kentucky's. Arkansas and Tennessee are 2 games behind us now. So we got to pay attention to them as well. They're both really hot. The great news is Arkansas and Tennessee play each other twice still, and they both play Kentucky. So we are going to have some beat up on each other, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place stuff going on. If Auburn can just take care of business at home, I think that's kind of one of the keys. We're undefeated at home. Let's go to Auburn's and kind of look at that.
It feels like maybe we actually have the easier. I mean, we have to look at Tennessee's, I guess, but Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss at home, Mississippi State away, South Carolina. We might have the easier schedule of all these teams. We just look. I'll have to look at Tennessee's, but the other 2, I think I'd rather have our schedule than their schedule.
Oh, absolutely. I think we have the easier schedule. I hate to say this because it's probably a jinx and a curse, but I really think if you look at how A&M, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, and South Carolina are playing, all of those at home, there's nothing guaranteed, but it'll really sting if we lose one of those at home to one of those 4 teams the way they're playing right now.
Then it leaves it up to at Florida, at Tennessee, and at Mississippi State. It's going to be tough to win all of those. I would expect to definitely lose at least one of them and then probably drop another. Yeah, we saw how we played against Ole Miss and UGA, and those are the bottom of the league, and we barely pulled them out. So, if we can go into that Florida game, we win at Florida, I'll feel really good that we'll at least get to 3, and we'll have I don't expect Kentucky to not, if Kentucky doesn't lose another game all year, then we just had a terrible bad luck that Kentucky was that good, So I'd love to see what the average losses are, how many or wins or whatever for SEC champions over the last 10 years,
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I know we were 13-5 the year we won it. So that was maybe on the lower end slightly. I feel like 2, 3, 4 losses, 3 or 4 losses probably is average, I would say.
Yeah. You probably, if you get to 4 or 5, then you're definitely probably sharing it with somebody. So
the games tomorrow, another good, Tennessee travels to Mississippi State tomorrow. That'll be an interesting battle. One of those teams will lose. Maybe Tennessee will get knocked off a little bit from their hot streak.
Alabama at Ole Miss, Tennessee at Mississippi State. Those will be fun to watch just because we can clearly cheer for either one of the, we know who we're cheering for, the Mississippi schools in those,
Yep.
Those are always fun. Well, we'll see if, Tech College Game Day is coming to town on Saturday. I don't know if people are camping out or what they're up to getting ready for that. I hope people camp out again. I hope there's I think there's gonna be a weird thing where College Game Day is right before the game. So they'll be interested to see how they produce that before the game. If people are camping out, we'll ask Matt Plexico what he's up to again to see if maybe he wants to correspond. I know our little Twitter friend Luke and his dad, they're going to the game against Texas A&M. I hope they can meet Jabari. If there's anybody out there that can make that happen. He thinks that Auburn, and I agree with them, is the best team in the world, and he wants to show it all to his friends. So I think it'd be a cute moment if he can meet Jabari. Maybe we'll have a little kid correspondent. He was a little shy on Zoom, but maybe with his dad recording a couple reactions of his 6-year-old brain on Auburn basketball would be kind of a fun little thing on Twitter or Instagram. So take a look out for that.
This is a great thing for the students. Think about this, because the game day starts at 10 a.m. Central, games at 11. So they're going to be in there at 9:30 with their normal. Maybe they'll do 9. Maybe they let them in early again. They're just going to be waiting for the game anyway, and they get to do whatever game day is going to do while they're kind of building up to the tip-off, and then it goes right from there. It's a really good setup for us. I'm glad we get the exposure while we're still number 1. We'll deal with the polls next week, but it's a big game now. Losing this one, you really want to bounce back. You get 2 back-to-back A&M and Vanderbilt at home, kind of lick your wounds a little bit. Hopefully we can take care of business in those and kind of maybe get a Kentucky loss along the way, or some of those other teams drop back a little bit. It's a big one. I'm really curious. They've said they're going to do some Jungle City / Pearlville something and do it a little more organized. I know Bruce said they were preparing for it and praying for better weather this time, not as cold. So it'll be fun to watch. We'll see what happens.
We have not talked about this. I almost decided I almost forgot to completely skip it or whatever, but that was a long podcast on this loss or whatever. I think it was deserved that we really hashed that out. I hope you guys enjoy these long podcasts because we still have a little time to talk about that. It's no longer Auburn Arena, or I don't know exactly when the switchover is.
Last game, South Carolina game.
They're going to dedicate during the South Carolina game. That's hopefully a celebration of another sort, maybe at the same time. It is no longer Auburn Arena. It'll be Neville Arena, named after Bill and Is it Neville? Am I pronouncing it wrong?
Is it Neville or Neville? I didn't know.
Bill. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Maybe it's Bill and Connie Neville or Neville. I think it's Neville. We'll figure it out in the next day or two. I'm sure. I think it surprised a lot of people. There's a lot of talk in the last couple of weeks with how this amazing run's gone. That one day they'll have to name Auburn Arena something. Everybody knows that the whole time we've been waiting to name it something, depending on a donation or a great coach or a great player, something like that. Lots of jokes about the Pearl or Pearl Barkley Arena or something like that. Well, it's been snatched up. The Tim Cooks of the world and the Jimmy Raines of the world and all these other people that Auburn alums that are billionaires or whatever, like you just lost out on the biggest real estate you could have put your name on. I feel like maybe Tim Cook will replace the Haley Center or something like that. But if I'm him, I want to name the arena after myself. And I would have donated, supposedly it was around 20 million or more, maybe. I don't think the numbers are exactly out there, but it was the biggest gift in Auburn athletics history, not just basketball, athletics history. I love it. I love that we're capitalizing on this big run to like really, we've talked about it all year long, that we're not, it's not necessarily all about this year. It's not necessarily all about getting that one. It's about setting a foundation. If we win the SEC this year and go to the Final Four, but we don't set the foundation, then this year will not be like, we want to get the full experience out of this. And right now, this is the kind of stuff that is absolutely setting the foundation, signing Peralta an 8-year contract, getting this big donation that's going to pay for the basketball, like only facility and the park, whatever else is going on there. So Bill and Connie Neville, what do you think? What do you think about the naming? What do you think about giving the naming? One of the big thing is naming the arena not after a player or coach, but naming it after a donor. How do you feel about that?
I'm okay with it. I was honestly surprised to see a lot of negativity around it. I think people are, the reality is in about 5 or 10 years, it's going to be Bruce Pearl Court at the Neville Arena, or we're really going to have to get a pronunciation thing on it. I'm cool with it. I love the donation. I think it's awesome. We need that infusion of stuff, and it's the fact that it's towards basketball. That's a great point you made. Like that's huge. It's great to see. There's some videos circulating and photos of that couple with the students and dancing during swag surfing, and like they seem like cool people. You had a great nugget I'll let you share about kind of maybe.
Yeah, I think there was a big surprise with it, because we thought if there's like threefold. We kind of thought it was going to be a player or coach one day that maybe in like 8 years or whatever, we name it, like in retirement year for Pearl, we name it after him or something like that. Then the next one is, I don't think people really thought about donors would be the name. I think you had one or two options. You thought it was going to be a player coach kind of thing or a corporate sponsor. And oh my God, screw corporate sponsors. I'm so glad the rest of the Auburn fan base and everybody's so behind that. That's Bush League, poverty program stuff, the Yum Center and Papa John's Stadium, both Louisville and Kentucky named their field Kroger Field, just all that crap. It's headed that way. We all know the steady march in all of America, but in college sports too, the steady march of money and corporation and like not caring about like the more like ethereal parts and the more like traditional parts of our society or whatever. But just really glad it didn't end up, Yellowwood Arena or some other corporate arena name. I'm glad we secured that, and we got to, it would have been cool to be Pearl Barkley Arena or whatever, but if it's going to have to be about the money, give it to some donors, put a donor name on there. It sounds way better. So I started doing some research on the donors, because I think that's another element that surprised people. If it was a donor that was kind of more known to us, if it was a Tim Cook, or some other donor people know a little more about. If it was Charles Barkley, I don't know what his net worth actually is. I think people overplay a little bit. Media people and former players, like they make good money, but business people is ridiculous, So I don't know if Barkley's just got 20 million he wants to throw around right now. Not yet, But I did some research into them, because I was just like, who are these people? How do they have that much money? What's their story, And so I looked into them, and they live in St. Croix in the Virgin Islands. And they kept talking about like some sort of businessman that did some sort of software in St. Croix. I was like, what is going on? And then the videos came out that they're this older couple, not really older. They probably look like they're in their early 60s, late 50s, maybe even younger than that. They're both gray haired. So I think that's part of the reason people think that, but they actually look pretty young. But there's like some videos of them dancing around to swag surfing. And I'd seen this before. And I didn't realize like software, TV, basically what is going on? And people said it's something to do with television stations. I'd heard this before, and someone asked, who's that older couple that sits right there and was like partying with people? Supposedly he created the ticker that goes underneath like ESPN and other news stations, like the news ticker. There's always been tickers like that in like New York and things on screens, but supposedly like the breaking news, something's happening below the screen or whatever, was supposedly invented by him. I don't know why it's based out of St. Croix or how they're in St. Croix. If it's like there's some, generational wealth in there or something. He's pretty quiet on the internet. I can't find that much information on them. Even if you look up St. Croix, Bill Naylor, you think he'd be the richest guy on the island. Maybe if he can fly back and forth and name arenas after himself. I don't know. Hopefully we'll hear more about it. I'm sure we'll hear a ton about it come the dedication on that South Carolina game. Another weird element is he's not an alum. His dad is an alum and his granddad's an alum, or theirs or whatever. I know that it's like a married couple. They kept saying Bill and Connie, which is very nice that it's not like one person necessarily, but especially they're alums. If I'm the kind of person that's giving $20 million to name an arena after me, because I love that university so much, I'd go get a 1-year master's degree so I can say I'm alum. Maybe these guys have so much going on, so much money to be made, they don't have time for that, but I would just go get a master's in, Civil War history or something fun, whatever. And that way I could say I'm alum. Maybe he will do that later on, or they'll give him an honorary or something, but that's a long story to say. That's how we got to that name. I think it's great. What do you think?
We'll get used to it. People, look, Auburn Arena isn't exactly just I know it's the AA thing, but I mean, I don't think anybody's really attached to the name. Some people have a problem with the financial thing, like, oh, you just pay a lot of money and you get your name on stuff. But yeah, that's kind of how the whole thing works. So not all that surprising. We all knew, like you said, I think anybody paying attention knew that was going to happen at some point. I, for one, much prefer the donor route than the corporate route, like you said. I think it's a cool story. And I think hopefully it will encourage, part of the reason you do that is to kind of encourage other things that may be out there that you don't know about, other people, other organizations that can make other donations, maybe not 20 million, but make a difference in different ways for the program, especially basketball. I'm glad you mentioned it's about building a program. And the best part about locking Bruce up is that we can just continue this longer term thing of taking Auburn basketball from what it was to now what it is. And we just need to keep having that staying power. Like last year was a kind of a blip with the Sharif Cooper stuff and just COVID and a lot of stuff going weird. But, now we're building this track record over the last 5 years. Now 6, if you count, I guess 6. Well, depends how you calculate. We're building a consistent track record, and that's what you want. We want to be able to keep. I mean, I just rolled my eyes at you when you suggested that next year's team might barely make the tournament. We'd be happy. I don't think Auburn people are going to be happy with that. I think we're raising. It could happen, but I think the expectation, no matter what happens, who leaves, I think the expectation is, hey, we're kind of here to stay. We're going to be part of that conversation. We're not going to win it every year. We're not going to win in the tournament every year, but we're going to be in that conversation.
And it's hard to predict anything these days with a future team anyways. I'm just basing it off of the players I believe will come back, but we might add some sophomore in high school that's reclassing doubled up that is on. So, the stuff's so wacky this time about the transfer stuff. We might get another Kessler type. Then we might get a reclassified G League. Whatever, you don't even know what's going on these days. So it could be a completely different look by the time next year comes along. And hopefully we're still podcasting and we're still celebrating and we don't even care what happens because we think we got ours the year before if we're lucky.
I agree.
Anything else you want to wrap up on this game? Our first loss podcast, so I can't do my big spiel.
It's a bummer. We enjoyed it, man. It was a great run. A lot of good wins. We've got a great resume. All that doesn't change. I've said I've put my stake in the ground since the beginning of, I guess, even non-conference play. My goal is to try to win a conference championship. And I think this team can do it, but it just got a little harder. Every loss you take is going to make you a little more anxious about. Bruce has been telling the team every time when they play Kentucky, when they play Alabama, when they play LSU, we don't want other people to do our work for us. We want to do the work to win the league. We want to control that ourselves. We still have that, but obviously, theoretically, depending on how you look at it, we're a loss away from giving up sole possession of our destiny when it comes to winning the SEC. So we had built that buffer. We used part of it tonight, not for a lack of effort. I do want to point out, I think our guys battled their tails off in a tough environment. Nothing was going right for a lot of that game. And the fact that they kind of bowed up, they came back, they were up. I saw while you were talking about the new arena, I forgot that the play where Wendell completely fell asleep to the weak side. Note came from behind and just stripped it. Was in the last minute of the game. We were up 2 with the ball with 50 seconds left in regulation, and he just gets completely stripped, not noticing that he's sneaking up behind him. Just rough.
It's tough, man. We can still say this, though. We've done a lost podcast. We've lost away, but we haven't lost in regulation all year, which is impressive. Put it on a T-shirt or whatever. I hope we keep that going. You look at these different little streaks. Matt loves weird little stats. That one's not even weird. That one's just a normal, like, throw that to all your friends. Keep peacocking. We have one loss. Keep peacocking out there. Don't think this is like some other sports where it's a big deal to lose a game like this. We'll bounce back. Thank goodness we have 4 days to bounce back from this. Thank goodness we still got our number 1 ranking, so we can go into that college game day with the number 1 ranking. Keep peacocking out there, guys. It was a good one, or not a really good one, but it's fun talking about Auburn basketball again. Even with a loss, it was still fun. War Eagle, man.
Guys, let's keep it up, man. I echo Jackson. Let's keep up the energy. We're in first place in the league. We're a projected 1 seed. We had the least losses in America still, with 2, I think, tied with Gonzaga. So we're in a great spot. Let's bounce back on Saturday.